Our passage in the Gospel of Luke for the Sunday comes from chapter 24, verses 13 through 36. When you go to church each Sunday, do you expect to see Jesus? Do you expect to experience the presence of God? Is He not Emmanuel, God with us? Did not He say to us, "Lo, I am with you always"? Two disciples, Cleopas and another, walking home to Emmaus, did not expect to see Jesus. They had heard the report of women saying the tomb of Jesus was empty, and two angels had spoken to them. Verses 1 through 11 of our chapter gives us the context for our passage to study this morning. Look with me at verse 11 as a part of that context. And these words appeared to them as nonsense, as idle tales, and they would not believe them. They would not believe them. The news of the women was unbelievable to them and received by the disciples as nonsense, as idle tales. Dr. Luke, in recording our gospel, reaches into his understanding and has given to us a medical term for hysteria. Hysteria. Verse 11, verse 12 also, don't miss the reference to Peter. But back to the two disciples walking to Emmaus. They had lost their hope that Jesus was the Messiah, the Redeemer for Israel. Their hope was born of a human understanding of their expectation. Let me read for you verses 13 through 14. And behold, two of them were going that very day to a village named Emmaus, which was about 7 miles from Jerusalem. And they were conversing with each other about all these things which had taken place. The two disciples understood the Messiah would redeem Israel. That is, from their understanding, that meant he would free Israel from bondage to the Roman rulers. As the disciples walked the 7 miles to Emmaus, they talked about all these things which had taken place. They asked the question, what things were they talking about? Perhaps the power demonstrated in miracles they had seen Jesus perform. At least the things of the previous week, the triumphal entry into Jerusalem on Palm Sunday, the cleansing of the temple, the upper room with the Passover lamb and the Lord's Supper, the prayer in Gethsemane, Jesus' arrest, trials, crucifixion, burial, and this day, the unbelievable idle tales told by hysterical women. As they walked, they were approached by one they did not recognize by sight. Let me read for you verses 15 through 16. And it came about that while they were conversing and discussing, Jesus himself approached and began traveling with them. But their eyes were prevented from recognizing him. It was Jesus, but their eyes were prevented. Jesus was with them, but they did not see him. As you read verses 17 through 20 of our passage, note the questions Jesus asked and the answer of Cleopas. Now let us read verses 21 through 24. But we were hoping, Cleopas says, we were hoping that it was he who was going to redeem Israel. Indeed, besides all this, it is the third hour, it is the third day since these things happened. And in verses 21 through 24, notice especially verse 21, their disappointed hope, and verse 24, they did not see him. But we were hoping that it was he who was going to redeem Israel. Indeed, besides all this, it is the third day since these things happened. But also some women among us amazed us. When they were at the tomb early in the morning and did not find his body, they came, saying that they had also seen a vision of angels, who said that he was alive. And some of those who were with us went to the tomb and found it just exactly as the women also had said, but him they did not see. But him they did not see. Notice especially that 21st and the 24th verses. The verb form in verse 21 makes it clear that they were hoping right up to his death. Even after his death, when the women reported the empty tomb and the angels saying, he is alive, their hope, just maybe, but when some went to check it out, their hope died. Their human hope, based on their expectations, their understanding, died. They were in that time between understanding and the reality of truth. Hope born of truth. The understanding of the two disciples was confronted by truth, by Jesus. They had been working and understanding with hope that was born of human expectations, of human understanding. And now they would be confronted by truth. As you read verses 25 through 27, notice especially verse 25. And he, that is Jesus, said to them, O foolish men, and slow of heart to believe in all that the prophets have spoken. All that the prophets have spoken. The prophets expected the Messiah to conquer their enemy. No, but these men, these two disciples, expected the Messiah to conquer their enemy, who was the Romans, not to be put to death by them. Jesus interpreted Moses and all the prophets, the truth about the Messiah. Think about this. What an amazing blessing to hear Jesus himself teaching Scripture. Note verses 28 to 32. As they heard the truth, their hearts burned within them, and they recognized Jesus. Cleopas and the other disciple saw now with eyes open to truth. Notice also verses 33 to 36. Their hearts compelled them to tell the good news. That very hour they walked, or did they run, perhaps, the 7 miles back to Jerusalem to share the truth with the 11 disciples. While doing so, Jesus came and stood in their midst. Note, verse 21 again. We were hoping. For me, that's the key verse. Verse 21, hoping. Notice verse 16. Their eyes were prevented from recognizing him at first, but in verse 31, their eyes were opened and they recognized him. What a wonder when you see Jesus. Now that their eyes were able to see Jesus, their hope was born of truth, the truth of the Messiah, the truth of Jesus. Also, the disciple who had denied Jesus, that's Peter, had a heart-burning experience with Jesus. He wrote about hope you and I can depend on as being true. Read it in first chapter of 1 Peter, verse 3. He speaks of a living hope through, that is, by means of, the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead. And in verse 13, he instructs us to fix your hope completely on the grace to be brought to you at the revelation of Jesus. Hope born not of human understanding, but of hope born of truth. It is Jesus who said, I am the truth. Yes, the way, but I am also the truth and the life.